welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Violet Bird and this is episode 3 of my summer 2020 Boler series. This episode was an unexpected episode and I would like to call it When Things Go Wrong. Before we begin, this is a bit of a story time episode, so if you're not into that, that's okay. Please check back next week where I give you a comprehensive what to pack list when you're going on a Boler adventure. But this came up and it is quite an interesting story about how we got flooded out in Revelstoke. If you like this idea and want to stick around, please hit the like button below as the YouTube algorithm really likes this and it helps push my content out to more people. For our first BC excursion in 2020, we wanted to take our 1973 Boler Penelope out to Cherryville to do some gold panning. We began driving from Calgary at about 7:30 in the morning and we made it all the way to Revelstoke. And then we found out that the road had been washed out. Now the funny thing is, our first stop was at my parents' house, about a 40-minute drive from Revelstoke, but we couldn't get there. We were faced with two options. We could either stay the night in Revelstoke, head on out first thing the next morning, or we could drive through Nakusp and take the ferry, and then take the other ferry, and then continue on that way. That added about another 3 hours, best case scenario, to the trip. And we'd already driven 5 hours. I decided that the kids were getting squirrely and the best thing to do was to stop, take a breath, see if the roads would open up in the morning, and we decided to camp in Revelstoke, which was cool. We went to the Revelstoke campground and it was $50 to stay overnight. We had water, we had electricity, and we had our Boler, so it seemed like a good situation. We were okay to get derailed partway through our adventure. We had budgeted the $50 to go to the Enchanted Forest, but since there was no access to the Enchanted Forest, we thought that it was an okay trade-off to perhaps go and stay overnight in Revelstoke. And it was pretty wonderful. We walked along the CP rail and we went to a special brew house that was just down the street from the campsite. So right by Revelstoke Campground, Big B Brewery, so we're going to check this out.
Oh, you have thirst.
I feel like such a tourist right now. Go on in there.
Right.
That's what Grand is, huh? Cool. Cool. Wow, look at that.
I think this is the Tall Timber Ale. This will be the Powerhouse Pale Ale. And these two will be the Brave Liver Scotch Ale.
And it was a good camping trip for the kids. There was the playground and there was the most beautiful duck pond. So these beautiful white English ducks with really short wings floating along the duck pond all day long. Revelstoke was a great place. I definitely recommend this campsite if you're looking for some beginner mode camping. Great place, very safe, very clean, beautiful facilities, nicest bathrooms, and the toilets flush. So that is a plus plus. So I took some advice from my father. He said that the roads in Revelstoke were likely to be closed all weekend based on what they were seeing and the washed out situation. So he said, you know what, start as early as you can, get to the first ferry you can. That is going to be your quickest way to get to Sycamoose. Just go through Nakusp. And I said, okay, so we're going to get up at 5:30 in the morning. We're going to pack up our campsite and we're going to drive to Nakusp. We're going to take the ferry, we'll drive some more, we're going to take the other ferry, and then we're going to route through Cherryville, drop off some of our gold panning equipment, go to Sycamoose, visit up with my parents. Boom, beautiful, no problem. However, there was a situation that came up. It was just a little bit crazy. Phil lost his keys. Phil lost his keys. And he lost his keys to our trailer, to our truck. All the keys, they were lost. And if anyone has lost their keys before, you know the gut punch and panic that comes from losing your keys. Imagine losing your keys somewhere where you don't live with 3 kids and you needed to renew your AMA. Oops. We were okay, but we were a little bit late for the ferry. We thought maybe we could see what's going on at Revelstoke, see if we can drive through. Cars were getting turned away, right? 7 in the morning, cars were getting turned away. 5 a.m. Drive BC update did not get updated, so instead they did a 7 a.m. update. And the 7 a.m. Drive BC update said the roads were unlikely to open, so we're like, okay, we have to drive through Nakusp, we're going to do it. So we began driving to Nakusp, to the first ferry. Now the first ferry, it was fine. We missed the 7 a.m. ferry, makes sense. But there was a big enough line, we also missed the 8 a.m. ferry. So my poor kids waited for 2 hours for our first ferry, which we made. No problem. We got a beautiful view of the water as we crossed. It was just fine. It was good. No problem. Ferry ride was good. We were on the other side of the water. We drove to the next ferry. It was called the Needles Ferry. Okay, there was about an hour from the first ferry to the Needles Ferry. It wasn't a problem. We drove there and then we began to wait. Now the problem was that ferry had a very long line and very small capacity. So the Needles Ferry was only taking 25 cars at a time, whereas the first ferry I believe was taking taking 80. That was fine. We decided to count the cars, and we counted. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I counted 225 cars. Phil and I looked at each other and said, well, you know what? I'm going to go count again. So we took Beowulf, and they went and counted all the cars again. And they said, yeah, Violet, you know what? With trailers, still 225. And that was about an hour after I'd done my count. When you have a trailer, it counts as 2 vehicles. One for the car, one for the ferry, because they can't make more space on the ferry. They have to count it that way. Okay, I understand. No problem. 225 cars divided by 25 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rides. 9 ferry rides. What does 9 ferry rides look like? 9 ferry rides looks like if it's every half an hour, so 4.5 hours. We weren't going to wait 4.5 hours. We actually had already waited 2 hours before I went out and counted the cars there. So we're at 2 p.m. and this is our second day of driving. We've been in the car since 6:30 a.m. We've been in the car a really long time by this point, and we're like, okay, let's see what's happening in Revelstoke. So we check and it's like, oh, traffic is open both ways in Revelstoke. Thanks, Drive BC, for the noon o'clock update. I mean, it would have been really nice to, maybe let us know that you opened one lane back when we were driving at 5 a.m. if you'd have known. But I guess, I don't know. I know we were checking the updates, and as soon as both lanes of traffic were open, we're like, okay, we're gonna go. So we doubled back, and we went back, and we took the first ferry again, and we were so lucky. We just breezed on through, and we were on the first ferry, and it was beautiful. We had an even more amazing view of the water, and it was just so good, and our little Boler just chucking behind. We were 3 hours from getting to Sicamous. 1 hour from the cusp, from Needles to the first ferry, and then from the first ferry to Revelstoke was another hour, and then through Revelstoke to Sicamous was hour 3, and we got to my parents' house by 6 p.m. All in all, we were 12 hours in the car on the second day, and we were 5.5 hours in the car on the first day. So we decided that we were going to replan our trip to Cherryville. And this brings me where we are today. So originally I was going to have my kids out for 2 nights in Cherryville with us, and then Phil and I were going to do 3 nights ourselves. But because they had a night in Revelstoke and an entire day of driving, I didn't want to be ferrying them around the country. So they're with my parents, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. I hope that they're being good and brushing their teeth. Our kids were so good. Noelle, Beowulf, Marigold, you were so good. We had lots of rest breaks. We took lots of walks. We did a lot of waiting, and we pulled out our Nintendo Switch lights. Beowulf and Noelle each made their own characters in Animal Crossing. We do make sacrifices. However, from this experience, what did we learn? How can we help you? What is the value added of this insane drive, wait situation? We want to make some recommendations for Drive BC, okay? First recommendation for Drive BC. Please estimate some kind of a waiting time, because there's nothing like driving all around the country. I mean, it's kind of fun. And if you have lots of snacks and games, it's fine. We would have loved a 5 a.m. estimate as well as a 5 a.m. update. Now, we got neither. One of the two would have been enough. If we can't have the estimate, then let's have an update. But instead, it was left wide open, so we had to execute. I mean, we could have just stayed in Revelstoke and waited all day, but we wanted to get the show on the road. As much information as possible, please, please, please let us know. Second, for the ferries in BC, please, for the love of all that is good, have signs out giving an estimate for the time waiting for the ferry. Now, 225 cars ahead of me. Okay, but it would have been really nice to have someone coming out up and down and communicating the wait times. That gives people the option to turn around to change their plans. Heck, maybe we could have driven back to Calgary instead of waiting for 5 hours for the Needles ferry. That would have been okay. Our kids would have been able to sleep in their beds. We could have replanned. I don't know. I do know that we would have loved some kind of communication, because I felt pretty dumb walking up and down counting cars, and then all of a sudden people were asking me to give them the update. And what do I know? Like, oh well, you're about 50 cars past me and I'm 225 cars from the front, so 175 cars, and we think it's going to be about... See, I'm not an expert. You don't want me to be giving you your estimated update, because I don't know how long you're going to wait. I'm sorry, this isn't my industry. I'm just guessing. Please, give us somebody who has a good sense and have them giving the updates, or put up a sign. Right? Make it like Disneyland. If you have an emergency, give us a big sign that says, hey, from this point, you're approximately 2 hours from getting your turn on the ferry. Beautiful. Done. Heck, I'll make the sign. Send me some cardboard and spray paint. I will make that sign for you, and you tell me where it goes. I'll put it there. It'll be great. No problem. And now here's the part, the stuff that, I wish I would have known before we went through this whole escapade, okay? Here are my recommendations for travelers to British Columbia. If you're coming from Calgary, plan to arrive in Revelstoke before noon. In all my experience, many years of living in Calgary, almost 10 years now I've been living in Calgary or Chestermere, and whenever we drive to BC, if we leave early enough to get through Revelstoke before noon, we have never had any problems. If you leave too late or you stop too much before you get through Revelstoke, then you're hooped, because inclement weather seems to happen in Revelstoke between like 11:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. But if you arrive before noon, you're either in the middle of what's happening or you completely miss it and you don't get stopped. So just plan to get through Revelstoke before noon. That is my first piece of advice for myself, but we got going late. I knew this one. I really should have planned better, but we didn't. Whatever, never mind. Second, if a major highway, the number one highway, the main artery between Alberta and BC is closed, you better believe that the road crews and the priority will be set towards fixing that problem. All the energy, all the money, all the panic squads, they are going to the number one highway. They're not going to figure out a way to put up a beautiful sign for you for the Needles Ferry. You're just going to be waiting. So always prioritize staying on the main highway. If at all possible, don't reroute. Do not take a detour if you can wait it out. If we had just waited until 8 a.m. in Revelstoke, we would have arrived at my parents' at 8:45 a.m., maybe 9 o'clock. Instead, we arrived at 6 p.m. And like I said, my kids have beautiful contributions to our Animal Crossing islands. I mean, it was a beautiful situation. It worked out so well. Third recommendation for travelers. Follow your gut, because best case scenario, you're smarter than everyone else and you knew what was going to happen and everyone should have listened to you and everything would have been fine. Worst case scenario, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. I should have listened to them. It is so much better to be really right in this situation than to say, oh, I followed someone else's advice and it was the wrong advice and so we waited an extra 12 hours today. No, make your own choices. I don't care if it's the wrong choice. You'll feel so much better about life if you make your own wrong choices than try and blaming other people. So listen to yourself. You're smarter than the people giving you bad advice. Now, if they're giving you good advice and you're pretty sure it's good advice, go with that. But if you in your gut are saying, I probably should just wait until 9 a.m. in Revelstoke, listen to that voice. That's the smart voice. Finally, how I want to close this video today is please remember the best laid plans are the most vulnerable to failure. The more detailed, the more careful, the more planful you are, you have to expect more things to go wrong, more points of failure. So sometimes having a basic plan with little touchstones and then lots of flexibility is good. That's what you need. Be a flexible millennial. Make plans, but expect them to change at any moment. And you know what? I mean, we've got more murder hornets, we've got a pandemic, right? We're handling this. The world can go crazy, but we're gonna be fine. We are adaptable. All right, thank you so much for joining me for Story Time in Penelope. This was a very unexpected episode for my Boler 2020 series, but she came along for the entire ride throughout the ferries, throughout Revelstoke, and let me tell you, she was very well behaved. Thank you, Penelope. If you like this video, please let me know. Please subscribe to my channel. I am 5 people away from 1,500. Whoa, what is going on here? And don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell me about your worst travel experience, the longest you've ever waited in your car for something to get started. I want to know. I want to see what we can learn together about planning, because those who fail to plan to fail, and those that cannot adapt do not survive. Thank you and have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.